Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm looking for our team. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our very first in-person Arvin Lamont AB 617 Community Steering Committee meeting. Really appreciate you all being here. Love the silence. That means the food is good. People are happy. People are having dinner. So welcome. We're about to get started. I'm going to do one last walk to welcome folks that are outside so that we can officially start the meeting. Thank you.
Muy buenas tardes a todos. ¿Ya tienen todo su equipo de interpretación? ¿Lo tienen listo? Cuando se lleguen estos momentos donde ya comencemos las pláticas es cuando se los pueden poner. Todos vamos a estar al principio de la reunión en lo que es el canal 0. Así es que si no escuchan al intérprete, primero verifiquemos que estemos en el canal 0 y de esa manera vamos a asegurar que todos nos podamos escuchar. Sé que están comiendo, así es que ahorita no se preocupen, solamente quería que supieran las logísticas y van a usar el mismo aparato cuando vayan a las diferentes estaciones y solamente van a estar cambiando del canal basado a lo que miran arriba. Así es que, pero ahorita, durante este momento, estamos todos en el canal 0. As we get going, if we do have any questions or comments during the initial opening, if everybody has their interpretation device with them, we will be on channel 0, which is where all interpretation will be happening for the opening. So, welcome to the meeting.
Welcome, everyone, to our official 16th meeting of the Arvin Lamont Community Steering Committee for AB 617. It's our pleasure to welcome you in person. Before we get started, just want to make sure that we have proper equipment for everyone that is listening in Spanish. So I would like to pass it to Emilia.
Bienvenidos a todos, bienvenidos a nuestra junta número 16 para el comité directivo de aquí de la ciudad de Arvin y Lamont. Nada más asegurando que todos tienen su servicio de interpretación, que tienen su aparato prendido. Debería de estar en canal 00, ahí debería de aparecer en su aparato y de esa manera aseguramos que todos estén escuchando. Por favor, déjenos saber, pónganselos en los oídos, de esa manera podemos empezar a escuchar. Gracias.
Great, thank you so much. So at this time, I'd like to remind you of the purpose of today's conversation. So we are here, we're gathered tonight to get your input. Remember, this is your Community Steering Committee meeting, and we're here to learn about your perspective on each of the CERT measures. As you came in, you're probably wondering, what is going on? What's on the wall? What are all these things that we're going to be doing? I'm going to walk you through the logistics momentarily, but before we begin, I'm going to pass it to the Air District to kick us off with some welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Olson. It is so nice to see all of you here in person. We are just so excited to meet everyone, to share a meal with you all, and to get started today. I just want to thank you all for making the trip. I know not everyone lives in Arvin. We are a large community, and there are folks here from Weed Patch and Fuller Acres and Lamont. So I just want to thank you all for making the drive, taking your time to be here. And I definitely want to thank our co-lead, Gustavo Aguirre Jr., who has been just such a great help in helping us prepare and get excited and reach out to all of you residents to make sure that we had a robust discussion today. So welcome, enjoy the food. There is plenty, it looks like. And I will pass it to Gus before we get started with our exercise. So thank you.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Doctor. How's it going, everyone? Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Gustavo Aguirre Jr. I am the Kern County Projects Coordinator for Central California Environmental Justice Network, and one of the folks responsible for getting all you folks here today to participate in this engagement. I think we're like in meeting 13 or 14 today, and although the rest of the meetings most likely won't be in person, it's good to have at least one in-person meeting to get kind of our hands wet in this incentive process, the CERP process, and really voicing any concerns that maybe haven't been raised yet. And so I appreciate everyone so much here. Again, I'm Gus, one of the community co-leads, happy to answer any questions or direct you to folks that know the answers to these questions. I see a lot of agencies here, both local, regional, and statewide, so that's really exciting because that gives residents access to have direct dialogue with the decision makers and folks in charge. So I'm personally excited about that and really excited about this entire process, and welcome everyone.
Thank you, Gustavo. Before we get started, we'll have one quick announcement. There is a black Dodge Caliber outside, license plates 7UAK777. A black Dodge Caliber car outside blocking a residential driveway. If it is your vehicle, the residents are asking if you can please move that vehicle as soon as possible so that the residents can come home. Thank you. Gracias. I got everybody's attention. I love it. All right. Love the focus. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for those welcoming remarks. And it is now time to get started with our activities. You might be wondering, what is the agenda item? How are we going to navigate through tonight's meeting? So we are going to navigate through today's CERP measures by having an open dialogue from experts from the Air District, experts from CARB, and experts from Department of Pesticide Regulation, and various other experts who are going to help you clarify any questions that you have on any of the CERP measures. As a reminder, today is the day for you to provide any feedback, any questions that you have about any of the CERP measures. Today, we are not taking an official vote. Instead, what we are doing is gathering your input and gathering your consensus and overall aspirations for whether or not you think this measure in particular should be included in the CERP. It may or may not be included, or it definitely should not, or you need more information to be included in each of those measures. So to do that, we're going to walk through an activity. Let me see here. Danny, can I have your help? I don't know where my team is. Can you move that to the center? Sorry? Can you move it to the center? Yeah. So to do that, we're going to navigate, and I'm going to show you an example here of what we're going to do for each of the measures. So what you see here is a fake measure, just to get you acquainted with the process. So here the pretend measure is incentives for watermelon agua fresca. And the proposed funding for this measure is $1,250. Notice that there is a change. It started at $1,000 and it changed to $1,250. What is that change? Well, you may recall that the Air District sent out a CERP measure incentive tracker for you all to provide your feedback and give the Air District a general idea of what you're thinking needs to be included in the CERP and what the proposed budget might look like. So the Air District has used those suggestions that many of you have provided and made some modifications. And those modifications are reflected in this change here. So you'll see a strikeout and then a new dollar amount that's being proposed in green font. And then you see the proposed units. So you're going to have 250 cups of agua fresca, delicious. Proposed amount per unit, $5. And then targeted reductions in tons, and you have the NOx and PM values there. This is obviously a fake measure, right? We're going through the example. And what you're going to do is you're going to navigate through the different CERP measures that you see across this entire room. You're going to start wherever you would like to start, and you're going to read the measure. You're going to read about the proposed changes. And then what you're going to do is in your welcome package, each of you has a series of dots. You have red dots, you have yellow dots, and you have green dots. So what you will do is when you walk up to this measure, there will be an expert standing next to the measure. Like Danny here is our expert on agua frescas de sandia. And if you have a question, like you might be wondering, okay, well, what flavors are available? What if I don't want watermelon? I want something else. Tell me, Danny, how can I do that? Or what if you want a more budget and you want that question answered? Danny or whoever the expert is will be there available to answer your questions. In addition, we know that some of you like to ask the questions out loud. Some of you want to write down your questions. So you have in front of you these Post-it stickers for you to write down your question and put it next to the measure, and it'll ensure that the person that's standing there will answer the question for you. Then, when you are done with your dialogue, so let's say I'm here and I'm looking at this measure, Danny's telling me about all the important things about watermelon agua frescas, and now I feel comfortable. Now I'm ready to give a proposed unofficial vote, give my consensus of what I'm thinking. I am ready. I want this measure. I'm going to give it a green, and I'm going to give it a green dot. That means that, heck yes, we want this CERP measure included, and we want it in the actual CERP. Maybe you still have concerns or you have questions. So if you're a maybe, you're going to add a yellow dot, and then if it's a maybe, you should definitely make sure that you've left your questions here, right? Tell us why it's a concern. Why is it a maybe? And then you might actually switch to a no. You might want a lot more information, or you don't agree with this measure at all, so you're going to add a dot for no. That's your unofficial vote. And of course, you're going to make sure that you left your concerns and you left your questions on the board. When you are comfortable to move on, then you're going to move and navigate to a different section or a different measure in the room. What you see across this room is that at the top, it says the channel that you're in. This is for the audio, so that all of our monolingual Spanish speakers have simultaneous translation for everything. Yes. Yes, absolutely. We're going to pause for 1 second while we figure out technology. Okay, so it sounds like our technology issues have been resolved. So let me move through the instructions. Everybody still follow? I hear some chatter. I want to make sure everyone's following with the instructions. Gotcha. Okay. So let me go through these instructions, once with this mic and once without the mic. Luckily, I can project my voice pretty loud. So what we'll do is, so now you're going to navigate to a station, a channel. And so what you see up top across the room is that there's several channels. Channel 5, channel 6 is here as an example. These channels indicate what channel you need to put on your device so that you can hear the translation in Spanish. Or if you're in English, you can hear it in English. And then what you will do is within each of these channels, there are multiple measures. So you see here where Juan is standing, we have a 5B measure, we have a 5C measure, and we have a 5D measure. You are not done with this channel until you've voted on each of the measures, okay? When you are done, then you navigate to the next channel, switch the channel audio, and that way you can hear that conversation. We are going to be giving you updates every 15 minutes or so because you'll have 1 hour to complete this activity. The idea is that you're starting at one of the stations and navigating through all of them to make sure that you have placed your vote. While this is happening, the experts will be gathering all your questions, and we will have a moment for everyone to share some general themes about the questions that you all had. So for example, in this case, Danny would summarize what are the questions that he had about the watermelon agua fresca. He would share it with all of you so everybody hears it. That way, if you need to go back and fix your vote, you can do that at the end of the meeting. Everybody clear? I don't see a thumbs up. I'm seeing a couple thumbs up. Okay. So, without the mic?
even at 30, I've heard it's not just like here, like I can't hear Raina, but I can hear Amy also, like a lot.
I mean, I do have it pretty low. Like, this is how I had it.
Where's the sound? And the sound is just coming from these right here, these two.
It might be an echo that they're hearing
Would
because
it be helpful to have like only one going? Yeah, like what if yeah.
I mean, the roof is kind of, it's kind of, I mean, you got, yeah, it's not acoustically nice.
I don't know if we just have one last group announcement. So I wonder if maybe do we do it both in English and Spanish and just kind of do
I mean, you
simultaneous?
guys have extra mics, so if you guys one wanted to do
I wonder if
English and
that,
the other one translated in Spanish.
yeah, I wonder if we close that way, just like a nice like thing.
Hello? Good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. If you have not seen every station, now is the time to rotate. Please consider rotating to a new channel. Now is the time to consider rotating to a new channel.
Buenas tardes a todos, ya son las 6. Si usted no ha cambiado de estación, por favor consideren cambiar de estación. Hay 7 diferentes estaciones, asegure visitar a cada uno, pongan su marca en cada uno y de esa manera van a poder dejar saber su voz, ¿ok?
Good evening, everyone. It's about 6:30. We'd like at this time for you to make sure that you've gone around each of the measures and placed your dot and your questions. We're going to transition in the next 8 minutes.
Buenas tardes a todos, ya son las 6:30. Asegúrense que ya han pasado por cada una de las medidas, que ya han puesto su puntito y ahorita vamos a hacer una transición breve como en unos 8 minutos, entonces asegúrese pasar. Hola, si me pueden dar su atención, por favor. Si ustedes tienen un aparato de interpretación, por favor asegúrense que esté en canal 1. Si me escuchan una vez, aplaudan una vez. Si me escuchan, aplaudan 2 veces. Si me escuchan, aplaudan 3 veces. Ok. Muy bien, entonces. Para el cierre, para poder acabar con la junta, asegúrese que esté su aparato de interpretación en el canal 1. Canal 1, por favor.
Vamos a probar. Si pueden escuchar a Emilia. Emilia va a estar probando. Probando. 1, 2, 3. I don't know what's going on. It's the battery? No? No, battery's good.
Let me get the other one again.
Okay. ¿Pueden escuchar a Emilia? No. Ok, mil disculpas. Cambio de plan, porque así es esta vida. Emilia, yo tengo el canal 5, si gustas probar. ¿Ya ahora sí? ¿Canal 1? ¿Prueba, Emilia?
Maybe they're hearing you. Is yours on?
¿Están en el canal? ¿Están escuchándome a mí? ¿El canal 5? Channel 1. I think they are on channel 1. Are you channel 1?
This one's not on channel anything.
Ay, Dios.
This is channel 0. Okay. And is
And
that
it
one on
works.
channel 1? Or who's on channel 1? Oh, okay. That's perfect. Yeah, see,
Ah.
this one wasn't working.
There we go. Ok, gracias. Todos en canal 1. Ya estamos listos para comenzar.
Gracias. Great. Thank you, everyone, for your participation this evening. As we wrap up, I'm going to pass it to Gustavo to give us some closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much. I won't take it too long, but I appreciate everyone for coming out today and doing these little sticker activities. It's a lot more funner than doing it by yourself and in an Excel sheet at home. But yeah, as you guys see, we look around a lot of the different measures, right? And these are measures that are going to impact your community, right? They're going to impact your community for the better. Some are pre-existing programs that already exist and enhanced for your community. Some are programs that normally these governmental agencies don't do, right? In isolated issues, so we're coming together with collaboration, right? But just if we take a look around, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of yellow, a lot of red, right? I see a lot more green than I do any other color. So right here in front of us, we have like a proposition, right, of $30 million to come to your communities with over 1,000 different. There's 3 different categories of pollution, and almost over 1,000, metric tons of pollution will be reduced with this proposition, right? So this is conversations that oftentimes happen without residents, oftentimes without community groups, right? And so what we're doing different here is coming together with these governmental agencies. We're coming together as residents from different communities and making these propositions, right, of what will be better for our communities, both in the short term and in the long term. So from the bottom of our hearts, all collectively here, we appreciate that. This is obviously the first of many conversations that we're having, right? This SERP is not now approved and we're going to go out and do it. But we're getting closer, right, to what are the things that residents, you all see here, that could be beneficial to our communities in the nexus, right, in the connection of reducing air pollution. So appreciate you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gustavo, so much for that. And thank you, everyone who came tonight. So I hope that folks see and recognize the commitment from multiple officials, from our local city officials to our county level officials, statewide officials, and multiple folks who are here, including the residents. What's most important is that you, CSC residents, are providing your input. This is your opportunity to really leverage your knowledge and discuss with each of these entities what the needs are. And we hope that tonight was served as a conversation to clarify some questions that you had about each of the measures. And as Gustavo Sr. said earlier, also provided an opportunity for you to modify the suggested measures. So as you can see, if you look around the room, as Gustavo said, we see that there are some clear consensus on some of these measures. And so, for example, if we look at the back, you see a lot of no's. We see one green yes and a couple yellows, but a lot of no's. So that's a clear indication to that particular measure. So as you think about our next steps, we want you to be thinking about the discussion that you had today. This is a preliminary discussion for you to get ready for an official vote so that we can have an official SERP that goes to the state. So we're going to transition to clarifying some of the general questions that you all had. And so to do that, I'm going to pass it to the Air District, Jessica Olson, who's going to provide a general overview of some of the questions that she heard while she was going through each of the measures. And then we're going to transition to talking about, as usual, our general action items based on today's conversation, talk about general questions, and then discuss some next steps.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos, and thank you, Gus, and thank you all. We just enjoyed the whole conversation. There were a lot of dynamic conversations, and there were a lot of questions. There are questions specific to the measure that are still posted. We are noting all of those, and we plan to address all of those in our upcoming conversation. So as Gustavo said, this is just, we're getting near the end, but we're not at the end. So we definitely want to help clarify. But some questions about just general process came up, so we wanted to just take a brief moment to clarify. What determined how much funding was received by each measure? So as most of you know, and was attached to your packet, we sent every sitting CSC member a spreadsheet that was a budget tool where we asked you to take the starting proposal that the district came up with based on our initial discussions with all of you, and then provide amendments or feedback to that proposal. So some of you said we wanted to increase the number, some of you said we wanted to increase the incentives, or both, or there were several that wanted to decrease the number, decrease the incentives, or not include that in the SERP. We took all of that, aggregated that on average. Most of the responses came from residents. Over 70% of the responses we received were residents. And that's all of the changes you saw around the room were based on those measures, or both that feedback we received. How were these measures drafted? All of these measures came, if you recall, we did that breakout group where you all provided answers on little sticky notes virtually on a Zoom call 2 months ago. All of these measures were based on the feedback we received from that call. So none of this was the district coming up necessarily with measures. Now, if the measure was generally, hey, we need more regulations, or we need to make sure we change out trucks, we of course then said, okay, well, if we're changing out trucks, let's do incentives. If we need more regulations, let's talk about the upcoming regulations. So that's kind of how the verbiage or the words for the measure were created based on all of that feedback. Which measures will require AB 617 funds? This is a great question and something that we wanted to clarify. Anything that had an incentives number tied to it is included in that just over $30 million Gustavo just talked about. That is all AB 617 funds. So I hope that clarifies that, but if you have any further questions about that, we can continue to make sure that's clear at our upcoming meetings. I have two more. One is, why can't the government pay for some of these measures without AB 617 funds? We had, I think you all, some of you maybe were there. If not, we recorded the beginning of our last meeting. We had some members from the city and the county come and talk just generally about how they acquire funds to do some of these things, and how they maybe apply for grants, or maybe they get government funding, and how that trickles down into the different types of things that they do for the community. And so with that knowledge, we hoped that would help set up this conversation and see whether you supported or didn't support some of these measures. So for example, I think there are some measures here we saw maybe after that conversation general support for, but you can also see some of the measures you all felt, it sounds like maybe reflective of this, that you wanted to not have it in the SERP and use 617 funding, which is of course up to you all as the CSC.
And then finally, we just wanted to clarify, it's kind of a general comment, but specific to the incentives for vehicle replacement. There were a lot of questions about using existing funding and then just using AB 617 funding on top of that. If that were to be the case, and I'm just helping clarify, the initial funding from the state would be first come, first serve across the entire state. AB 617 funding, and this goes for everything on that wall, is all just for this community within the boundary. So if we were to include just a little bit additional on top of that, the only thing that you would all get from the district and be prioritized for would just be that 7,000 for vehicles. But if we included the 20,000 for vehicles, and this is just kind of let you know how the process works, all of that would just be for residents in the boundary. You would not compete with other state people competing for all of that state money. So that question came up a lot, and we wanted to clarify. That is all the main process questions. And so with that, I think we're transitioning back to Harder to go over action items. So thank you all again.
Thanks, Jessica. So thank you again, everyone, for engaging in today's conversation. As part of today's next steps are that we're going to document everything that's posted. So all the questions that you have on those Post-its, any of the conversations that were noted. For example, we see a lot of activity here on the pesticides conversation. All of those will be typed up into a general FAQ so that you can see what the conversation was like. In addition to that, there are some CSC members that are not here today. So those individuals will be receiving a follow-up survey so that they get the opportunity to participate in the virtual version of today's activity. And then, of course, we have an additional meeting that we're adding to the calendar. As you know, we are meeting on May 3rd, which is next month, but that's on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, we will start by discussing all of the things that are in yellow. So all the things that got a lot of yellow and a lot of questions, we will start with that to ensure that you have all of the knowledge that you need to be able to then move to an official vote. That is the goal for our meeting on Tuesday. In addition to that, there are several action items that were introduced as a part of today's conversation. And so for that, I'm passing it to my colleague Gabby to walk us through those action items.
Thank you, Amy. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for such a lovely discussion. It's great to see so much excitement around the SERP measures. So some of these action items will kind of reiterate what Dr. Ramos just shared, but there's a couple that are a little bit different. So when we talked about the yellow dots, this action item is really about reviewing measures where there's not consensus at the meeting Tuesday, May 3rd. In addition, distributing that SERP voting survey to CSC members who were not present today. Typing back and sharing back those notes to inform the discussion on May 3rd is important, so the Air District will be taking the lead on that. And then finally, there was one measure in particular, which you'll note has some modified language up top there. So that measure, what we want to do is identify a process for gathering consensus since it's been revised. So that will also likely be discussed on May 3rd. So those were all the action items. We have them translated here, and they'll go onto that regular tracker that you're very familiar with that ends up on the website. And if there's anything else that you think is important for us to document, just let us know at this moment, and we can add it to this list. Thank you.
And so for those of you who are part of the stipend program, please do make sure to follow up with us. If you have any questions about your stipend, today's the opportunity to talk to us one-on-one. In addition to that, this wraps up today's conversation. We do have plenty of food for you all to take home. So if you enjoyed today's meal, please take some to-go plates. There's a lot of plates. If you need to take the whole tray home, take the whole tray home with you. Take it all. We want to make sure the food goes to somewhere where folks are going to eat it. Gustavo, would you like to add anything? Yeah, so on Tuesday, what you will see as part of the meeting, these will very likely to be super explicit. They will very likely turn into a slide. So we'll go back to virtual. So you'll probably have a slide. In the slide, you'll have the channel, and then you'll have the measure, and then you'll have a summary of those exact questions that are there and the count of the votes. And then we'll open it up to discussion, and we'll answer those questions and go on to the next one. So it'll be a verbatim summary of today. We're going to start, though, we're prioritizing the ones that have yellows, right, and the ones that have those questions. So as you can see here, we're probably going to start with channel 5. If I look at the room, I'm just guessing without looking at, like, counting all the Post-its. And then probably I see on channel 2 a lot of comments over there. So we're going to prioritize by the number of questions that folks had. All right, good evening and buenas noches. Oh, one. Yes. So if you put no, remember I had encouraged you to put a Post-it. So hopefully it's the same ones that have lots of Post-it. Yep. We'll talk about the ones that have a lot of no's. So for example, in the back, I can't read that far, but channel 3, the last measure, has a majority. Street sweepers, thank you, has a majority no's. So we'll probably have a quick conversation about that. Yes, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you for having us.